The other story that we are focusing on this morning is, I think, a tale of two banks. Just two banks, because those were the two that reported over the weekend. Kotak Mahindra Bank and RBL. Let's start with the one that seems to have positively surprised, Kotak Mahindra Bank.
Yeah, so as far as Kotak Mahindra Bank is concerned, a couple of strong beats. You've got core business, which is your assets and deposits, both growing about 15-16%. And that's a strong number in the current environment. Despite that deposit growth of about 15%, you've seen net interest margin for the bank improve by about 2 basis points. So that's obviously something of a positive in the current environment where most banks are struggling with maintaining that net interest margin. What has improved for the bank on its balance sheet is actually the cost of funds. So there, because of a higher growth on current account deposits, which carry 0% interest, and a cut on the savings account rate, you're seeing that the cost of deposits have dropped significantly despite the rise of cost due to fixed deposit growth. And the net of that is that the net interest margin has improved. Another point that is contributing to this NIM expansion, marginal although, but still a good NIM expansion for Kotak Mahindra Bank, is asset quality. On that front, the bank has actually done quite well. Flat asset quality, flat gross and net NPA ratios, which is obviously a positive. What is one thing that we need to watch out for is the way the microfinance business is going to evolve for Kotak Mahindra Bank. BSS Microfinance is Kotak Mahindra Bank's microfinance business. There we need to see whether asset quality continues to remain in a range-bound manner, and whether the bank is able to continue that business accounting for these asset quality issues. The main problem is that BSS Microfinance has reported a 50 crore loss during this quarter. So we need to see whether that turns around in the next quarter or couple of quarters. So according to the bank's management, these things are looking pretty benign. They're expecting that the asset quality on personal loans, microfinance, as well as credit cards continues to improve in the coming quarters. So that's obviously a big positive, Kotak.
But the stock is 9% up.
Yeah.
So let's put this in a comparative situation, because we are waiting for HDFC Bank to report. We want to see what the major private banks do. What has Kotak Mahindra positively surprised the street with?
Mainly the net interest margin. So that's the positive. That's the big positive, because most other banks are seeing their net interest margins shrink. This is because their deposit growths are finally picking up, and because you have higher deposit growth, you have to pay more interest to depositors. But the deposit
growth is up as well, despite that they've managed.
Exactly. So that is, as I said earlier, current account growth has been higher, 12% year on year. So current accounts typically carry 0% interest. So if that deposit base is growing, then you're not really spending any money in terms of interest cost on those deposits, and therefore your cost numbers are looking much better now, and therefore the net interest margin is improved.
I just want to point out that, the first time Kotak Mahindra Bank ever traded at 1,900 rupees per share was back in November of 2024. And since then, if you consider how things have panned out, well, nearly no returns, a lot of overhangs, but it seems like a lot of that seems to be coming out of, out of it. And I reckon that at this point in time, a lot of investors will take and look at Kotak Mahindra Bank with a little bit more freshness in terms of point of view. Well, Vishy, thank you for joining us and taking us through.
And actually, Vishy sitting in for this conversation.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry.
Yes, we have Ashutosh in. We wanted to get a quick word on RBL as well. Ashutosh, if we could just get a second, we just want to set the pace for RBL before we come to you, because Kotak Mahindra Bank is wow, and RBL is like, what happened?
Yeah, so RBL Bank numbers are disappointing. If you see the profit growth, so profit before tax, they've reported a loss actually on the PBT front. So that's important to note. The profitability is only because of a tax write-back that they reported during the quarter. Advances and deposit growth still looking pretty decent. Advances up about 13%, deposits about 15%. But asset quality, now that's where the big problem is. Net gross NPA ratio up about 4 basis points, while the increase is not that much. The number is actually getting hidden because of a stronger advances growth during the quarter. Main problem is the microfinance book. That's where RBL Bank is facing significant losses. That's something that the management had confirmed as well. Their expectation is that by first quarter of the next fiscal, that is by June 30, is likely when these things start to normalize and they start to see an improvement on the microfinance front. Overall, the rest of the business is pretty okay. Credit card delinquencies have actually improved or are coming down faster than expected. Lowered delinquencies on the credit card portfolio, so that's obviously helping. But microfinance still a pain point for RBL. Remember, RBL Bank was one of those private banks that really took that microfinance business up a few years ago under the previous CEO. But that's facing those problems now.